Hi, I'm Brooke Medicine Eagle here with Returning to Earth, Becoming Fully Human. This is a dynamic forum of wisdom keepers, elders, teachers, and healers focused on helping you create real and grounded, workable, and sustainable solutions for the current personal and planetary challenges that we face as a human family. And today I'm absolutely honored and thrilled to have with us someone I consider a real treasure to our human family. His name is Ilarion Merculieff, and he is among the last generation of the Aleuts on the Alaskan Pribilof Islands to be fully raised in the traditional way. That's what makes him such a special treasure, I think. He's had almost 4 decades of experience serving his people and other Alaskan Native peoples and the land there in a remarkable number of capacities. Throughout his life, Ilarion has focused on traditional knowledge, wisdom, and spirituality gained from culture bearers around the world, acting as a bridge from the past to those alive today. And he's created something called Wisdom Weavers to gather elders from 4 directions to sit in council to hold ceremonies for the purpose of deep listening to the wisdom streams that are ready to be shared by Indigenous people, and to help reweave the original instructions by coming together. And I wanted to read something from that website that I thought was really profound. He said, "We must come together to weave a new story and a new awakened presence as one Earth family in harmony with all our relations, if human beings are to continue on this earth." So, Ilarion, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today. I'm thrilled to offer your wisdom to people. And as we have talked about, I'd love to have you give a little beginning and let them know where you're from if you'd like. And then you carry so much wisdom. I'd just like to turn it over to you and let you share with them and give them, before we end, if we haven't specifically done that, I'll probably ask you about the few principles, the baseline underlying principles and beliefs and ways of looking at the world that will help them create solutions themselves. So here you go. Thank you so much.
Okay. Angwan. Kamagala kumna kamagala kasuda tingunangan way unangan asata kuyach. Tinkawalangan way. I said that hello, my other self, Angwan, which is what our people say to each other every day. Hello, my other self. And I said the afternoon tastes good, and that my traditional name is Kuyach, which means like an arm extending out from the body, carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. And I am Kawalanganunangan, which means the people of the stellar sea line. We have a very close relationship with stellar sea lines. Anyway, thank you for inviting me, Brooke. And hello to your audience. My people have been developed a remarkable culture. We can trace our ancestry back to Egypt, to Outer Mongolia, to Siberia, to Kamchatka, then across by traditional craft. It's not the Bering Land Bridge, as most anthropologists like to say. We are expert sea people. We have been out in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years, and we're still there. And my people developed the most per capita, the most number of people in North America along a mile of each mile of shoreline in North America for our time, in a place that's very hard to eke out a living. And so we developed this thing by what we call being the real human being, which is a person who is out of the mind and in the heart and present in the moment. And this is the way my people lived for most of the time until we were interrupted in our culture by the Russians, who enslaved our people and wiped out 80% of our people in 50 years. And the first people they killed were the shamans and their apprentices. But we have this system called kuyach. It was given to me when I was 4 years old by the last kuyach that was left alive amongst my people. It's given to one person in each lifetime. And the reason for it is to ensure that the basics of being a real human being are kept and passed along to each generation. And that's not just this generation, my people's generation, but everybody on Mother Earth. And I had a very traditional upbringing, as you said, where the entire village raised me. And to get to know my grandfather and for my grandfather to get to know me, I had to live with him 24/7, starting at age 4 for 2 years, so that we would get to know each other. And then I had an acha, what we call an acha, which is a special relationship between an older and younger person. And that was at age 5 when this man came and he saw me and I saw him, and we knew instantly that we were each other's achas. It's something that is not because of custom or anything like that. It's just a feeling that you have inside. And so you know instantly when that person is your acha. And he taught me much of what I know about being a man, about relationship to self and others and to the rest of the world, about reverence for all life, about ethics and values of Unangan men. We call ourselves Unangan, not Aleut, because Aleut was the name given to us by our former oppressors. And so his job, my acha's job, was simply to create the space for me to learn, not tell me what to learn, how to learn, or define anything. So I grew up asking no questions. And this is the role of the adult amongst my people, where the child job is to watch, listen, and learn. And it's very ingenious because we can expand out to the maximum of our capability without the prescription of an adult, without the interference of an adult. This is something that is not known today because everybody goes to school. And your parents probably said, you know, you'll learn this, you got to learn this, you got to learn that. And you've got to define this, you've got to be able to do all these things within the system. And so we give away this is the way I view it, we give away our personal authority to the adult from the get-go. And then we carried on to adulthood, where we go to kindergarten classes all the way up to postdoctoral degree. And the desks usually are facing one direction to a talking head who is the authority. And so we learn that authority, give away our authority all the way through postdoctoral degree. And anything less than that postdoctorate, up to that postdoctoral degree, is considered inferior. And this, you know, it's really a shame that the rest of the world, what it is my people would respect me as a child as an equal, except the only thing we lack is lack of experience. And that the adult job, besides creating the space for us to learn, was to ensure that we were safe. But other than that, they never interfered with us. And might be considered child abuse today, but it was normal amongst most indigenous cultures throughout the world. Now we've normalized the abnormal. And so we are, well, the Yupik elders here call this the reverse society or the inside out society, because we reversed all the laws for living. And one of the most salient and most important laws is that the heart used to tell the mind what to do, and the mind's job was to implement what your heart is telling you. Now the mind is telling the heart what to do. And we have the mess that we see in the world. You know, I could go on more about my upbringing, and I'll say this thing. I had to work with every segment of our culture. The men would teach me the men's ways in hunting and fishing. The women would teach me the women's ways and preparation of food and what's known about the food. The elders would take me out camping with them every weekend from age 5 to age 13. And I would just listen to their stories hour after hour, year after year. It was wonderful. And then, of course, with my peers, my job was to play. And so we would play. And so I've had a very rich upbringing. And I also want to say that, you know, I was never scolded. And very few people I find have never been scolded when they were children. But the adult knows that we are humans, are spirit beings in human form. And as such, the fresh spirit being, or the human being, is very easily traumatized. So scolding a person would traumatize that person's being. So they don't do that. And they're very careful about what they say around children. And I would say my people were my greatest teachers.
You know, you told a wonderful story that I think is a integration of the masculine and feminine. You were talking about learning from the women and from the men. And one of the things I've really appreciated and learned from you is about how the men integrate that wonderful feminine. And you told a story about going out and in the kayaks with the elders when you were young. And I believe you were hunting for walrus or perhaps the seal. They used that feminine intuition to really hone into where the animal was going to come up. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, that's a story about how I learned to hunt stellar sea lions. We were the people that consumed the most stellar sea lions than anybody else in the US or Canada, for that matter. We have a close relationship with stellar sea lions. And what I was saying is that the men showed me their ways, and much of it is very important to be the feminine side of your being. And that feminine side is nurturing. It's in relationship to yourself and to others and to all creation. And it allows us to sense, if you will, like when we're hunting sea lion, we sense where the sea lion is coming from. The successful hunter, the best hunters in the village, had to have these qualities that are considered feminine, and somehow that's negative, but no, all men knew the importance of that feminine side to their success, to be able to feed their families. And so I learned, I was very fortunate to learn this from the men. You know, for example, we'd go out and 4 or 5 men would go out, and I would go along as a kid. And my job was to watch, listen, and learn. So we'd sit on basalt boulders along the island. And the island that I grew up in is 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. It had, when I was a child, 1.2 million fur seals, 2.5 million seabirds, 1,000 reindeer, and 500 Unungan people. And so we would sit on the basalt boulder watching the ocean, because we hunt in the fall, winter, and spring, not in the summertime when they're breeding. That's a no-no. And it's actually colder for the sea lion to be up in the air than be in the water during these times. And so they would stay at sea, and we couldn't go out by boat because it was too rough. So it was easier to hunt them from the land. So we'd be on a peninsula on the island waiting for a sea lion to come by. And the men, we'd go out like 5 o'clock in the morning and be there so that we can be there when the ducks start flying in the morning at sunrise. And then after we hunt ducks, we hunt sea lion, and we wait for the sea lion. We might have one sea lion come by in the entire day, and we might be out there until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And, no one told me, I'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning so you can go out hunting. I had to take responsibility for myself at age 5. And that's, children can't take responsibility like that. And so I would wake up and go out there, and the men, by noontime, let's say, I would get daydreamy and sleepy. But the men, they never did. They were quiet. They were sitting down on the boulder, waiting for the sea lion, looking for the sea lion. And they weren't boisterous. They weren't noisy. They weren't active. They just stayed focused on the sea lion hour after hour. And by noontime, I'm just like getting sleepy and daydreamy, or I'd fall asleep. But the men never did. And I wondered how they used to do that, how they did that. And then someone would say, Kawakako, sea lion coming. And instantly, every single one of the hunters would look at one place in the ocean. And mind you, the sea lion could be anywhere, and we're in 180 degrees, 180 degrees of water from the island. We can see the vast expanse of no horizon. And yet they looked at this one spot. So I would look at it and looked, and I don't see a sea lion. But they're looking like there's a sea lion there. And then sure enough, the sea lion would pop up exactly where they looked. 10 minutes later, probably, after, the first sign. And I thought that was magical. And I learned that the hunters got this from the seabirds that come to the island. The seabirds, I used to love to go out watching the seabirds. And as a child, I would go out by myself in the dark and pitch black. And there's no street lights on the island. And so I would walk 3 miles out of the village and then crawl across large boulders to get underneath the bird cliffs. And I loved the seabird because they're so alive. And there's all kinds of species, the thick-billed murres, common murre, least ocklets, crested ocklets, tufted puffin, horned puffins, all these species. And they're flying in every which direction, up, down, left, right, in front of the cliff. They raise, the reason you go there before sunrise is that you want to be there when the birds first awake, because they wake up and they fly in a circle in front of the cliff. and they're waiting to collect members of their species before they go out foraging. And so I would watch them, and you know, I noticed now underneath this cliff might be 10,000 seabirds, a lot of birds, and yet none of them would even clip a wing. And I wondered, you know, how do they do that? Well, I thought in my child mind, well, you know, birds don't think. And I didn't have the words for it at that time. They're a field of awareness. And so they can go in every which direction at different speeds, different heights, and never clip a wing amongst 10,000 seabirds. And that I thought was magical. So I wanted to be a bird. I said, I'm 6 years old, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I want to be a bird. And so what I did was I did what I thought the birds were doing, which is to not think. And I stopped it. And within 2 months, I was able to do that for hours at a time. I can still do that today. And what happens is inexplicable. The magic starts to happen. And the hunters learned this way of being from the bird, because I tried it. I tried then go out hunting, and I'm not going to think. And sure enough, I could feel the sea lion before it arrived. And I could tell how it's going to swim, because it's important to know as it comes by the land how it swims, because they take deep breaths and go deep down. And when they do that, you know, you lose it. So you watch the pattern of each sea lion, and you time your shot when the sea lion, it just takes a deep breath. And so when you kill them, they float and they come ashore. It's just something that the birds taught the men. And this way of feeling from inside, from the heart, is a very feminine thing. Mm-hmm. And we have forgotten that. In fact, you know, our people have this story about the womb at the center of the universe. And this is where we get all of our original instructions. It's not something that we invented over time. We were given these original instructions. It's a place of creation and creativity. And women have that same field of energy inside themselves, in their wombs. And we say that nothing new is going to be created. Even the state-of-the-art thinking and state-of-the-art technologies are nothing but regurgitation of the old in new form. And that women used to be considered sacred all over the world. And we forgot why. We forgot why. And the why is that this place of creation and creativity is in them. And that when they gather together in sisterhood, heal themselves, and then project this field of energy that they have on the outside in sisterhood, in unity, then something new is going to be birthed. Until that time happens, nothing new is going to be birthed.
Well, that's so exciting to hear from you, because I've been doing a lot of work with women, and I know I've been inspired deeply by what you've said, that we come together as women with that magic that is the big magic that we've been given inside our own bodies and in our consciousness, with the love and good energy we have, and that we as women can literally birth this new earth. And I think you said before when I listened to you that until we women can bring that forth, nothing's really going to be new. We'll just be rehashing the old. And I wonder if you'd talk about this time and the urgency of this time.
Yeah, you know, as you mentioned, I helped form the Wisdom Weavers of the World, which was composed of elders from around the world. And we met the first time in Kauai in 2017. And I asked them two questions. One, what is the state of the world as they see it now? And two, what must we be doing now? And it was quite magical because from the time that I had this vision of inviting elders to the time it was implemented took 6 months from beginning to end. Now, an international gathering like this usually takes about a year or a year and a half to plan. But this way, I mean, we knew that we were receiving affirmation of what we were doing and support and help by the unseen world, because everything that we wanted was there. We wanted a film crew. We had 3 volunteer film crews. We wanted a director. We had an Academy Award winning director volunteer his time. And we wanted to make sure we had healthy organic foods, and all bunch of people in Hawaii volunteered to bring these kinds of foods to us every day. And it was just incredible. Anyway, so the elders discussed this and decided that the world needs to know what they know, and know it now, because they're saying Mother Earth has survived for billions of years. Mother Earth is going to survive for billions more. It's a question about whether or not we humans are going to survive and thrive during this time. And the time is very short. And whether or not we are going to survive is going to depend on every single human being alive today, and not the next generation, because it's not going to last until the next generation. It's going to be, it's going to happen now. And so they said, get the messages out. And so we created a team, and they decided to create do it on social media. And our first launch was the film, 14-minute film that showed the elders with their messages. And it was launched by Reuters. Again, we were wondering, how do we do this? Because we've never done this before. And here we have a volunteer from Reuters that says, hey, let us do this, because this is very important. And it went out to all parts of the world in their news service. And now we've got like 40,000 members. And this is just something that happened in 2 years. And the message is that we need to find the courage now to deal with the mind and all of the injuries created by the imbalanced masculine, and process them, heal them, and then we can fall into our hearts. It is important during this time for all people to be able to hear what their hearts are telling them to do. We each have a gift, the elders are saying, during this time that we have been given to give to the world, and that each person has got a different gift. And the only way you're going to access your gift is to go to your heart to hear what your heart is saying. And of course, as well as I do, and many of your listeners or viewers know that dealing with the traumas of the past in our lives, including intergenerational trauma, all people on earth have been traumatized in one way or another during this masculine imbalance. And we have got to be able to peel it off, like we say about the proverbial onion. We peel off these layers until we get to the core. And then we can go to the heart. But, it's not easy. I've been working with my people, not 4 generations, 4 decades, now it's 5 decades. And when I first decided to do this, I was about 33 years old. I knew the legacy that I had in my name, and that I had to do something that reflected the legacy. And I achieved the peak in patriarchy. I was Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development for the state of Alaska. It's a cabinet post. I was a vice chair of a $3 billion company. I was the head of 17 boards and councils. And I gave it all up in one day. In one day. People thought I was crazy. And I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to make money to survive, or anything about anything. And that takes courage to be able to just let go, to do what my people did, which was to be present in the moment and in the heart, and the rest, they say, is taken care of. It requires a faith that most people don't have today. It's not a faith of the mind that you figure out in your mind. It's a faith that you embody in your body, at every cell of your body. That when you do that, the rest is taken care of. And so I decided, well, I'll do this. And I lost all my friends who called me friends during that time, because I had positions of power and influence, and they since I didn't have it anymore, they left. And so I was thrown upon myself to face myself. I didn't have the external mirror of these people anymore to tell me who I am. I had to face myself. And that's when the work began. And it's very, very demanding, but it's something that every person in the world, if they want to help the world, has got to do now. And you will see that everything is taken care of afterwards. When I did this, I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go. And the first thing that happens is I get invited by my friends in Canada, in Canmore, Alberta, to visit them. So I decided, okay, I'll go visit them. While I was there, we got a phone call from the elders at the Morley Reserve, which is a 4,000-acre reserve in Alberta. And they said, we know that Larry is there. We'd like to invite him to this sacred ceremony that they hadn't performed in 150 years. And I didn't know how they knew I was there, but that's the magic. And so I went there. It was at a battered women's shelter. And there were women and children everywhere, but the elders, there were about 20 elders there. They were all wearing buckskin, and all of them had white hair, every one of them. And they only spoke their own language. And so I did my thing of watch, listen, and learn. Don't say anything, just watch, listen, and learn. And so I watched, in 2 hours, the ceremony lasted for 4 hours. They had pipes in the 4 directions. And the thing was, I noticed that the smoke from these pipes didn't go up. They went sideways, and they weaved this weave in the center that went up. And I knew then that I was among real elders. And so then the spokesperson for the elders in the middle of the ceremony stops the ceremony about 2 hours into it and said, we're speaking English for the benefit of our friend from Alaska. We want you to know that we have been praying to the Creator. And, we know why you are here. I thought I was there because they invited me, but they knew something else. And they said, we've been praying to the Creator. we have a message for you to carry. There was my first message that I carried. And that is that we know that people think that they have forgotten their spiritual ways. This is not so. It has been kept for you in the unseen world, waiting for you to wake up in spirit. And that was it. And then they went down with their ceremonies for 2 more hours. But I took that to heart, that I had to remember who I am. And the first thing I did was to build a traditional Unangan kayak. It was 17 feet long and 22 inches wide. And I understood from that alone how our people were very spiritual, because they had to have been to build the kind of craft that they did. It was determined by the University of London and the Smithsonian to be the most advanced high seas kayak in the world. And so it was quite a remarkable thing. Our people went all the way down to Patagonia with those craft a long time ago. And I verified that when I went down to Patagonia. I was invited by
South America.
Yeah, South America, the very tip of South America, in Chile. And I was invited by the Mapuche people to be part of a ceremony that they were doing called the Choica dance, which means ostrich. And it was in a sacred part of what their land is, and they protect it, keep it secret from anybody. They told me that there's a delegation of Quechua and Amara people that are waiting for me at the ceremonial grounds. And they want to talk with you. And I didn't know. They came by horseback from the Andes Mountains and traveled for 2 weeks just to meet me. And I thought, wow, this must really be important. So we got there, and sure enough, the 7 were all standing there waiting for me to arrive. And they wanted to talk with me right away. And they said, we heard about your traditional name. We had 2 interpreters that we went through. We heard about your traditional name. We want to know how you pronounce it, what it means, and how you got the name. So I told them, and they were excited, very visibly so, and they were talking with each other. And then they came to me and said, we have exactly the same name. It means exactly the same thing as your people are, and it's given in exactly the same way. This proves to them, they said, that they were the go-betweens for our people and theirs and South American people. They were the go-betweens for South America, for us. And so that was affirmation that, our people were incredible seamen and would go all the way down to South America, to the end of South America. And so this, the point is, what the elders are asking people is going to be tough. It's probably the hardest work that we ever do, just to go from the mind to the heart. And women can heal very quickly, just like this, if they get together in sisterhood. Whereas we men might take a lifetime to learn to do something, to be a real human being. But women can do it instantly. And then they can take that energy that they have within themselves in sisterhood and create that container on the outside so something new can be created.
Well, that's really so wonderful to hear. And, I want to emphasize, and maybe you can speak more to this, the sense that with this little forebrain, our mind, our thinking mind, is such a small part of us, but we've kind of got hooked in it in this modern world. And I think it's so great for you to emphasize that cutting loose of that and dropping back into the ancient and exquisite knowledge that is in our deeper brain and connects us to our heart is really important, because I think we're searching for answers and we're searching for solutions, and that the real solutions come from that ancient understanding, from the ancient wisdom that has kept us alive down through time. And I wonder if you would tell them the story about when the old man sent you down to the sea to drum a little bit. And because I think that story about where things come from, where are we going to get these answers? And it's not in new technology, it's not in virtual reality, it's not in artificial intelligence. So I would love to have you give them that, because we're so needing to know how to do these things.
Yeah, these issues that we're facing throughout the world, of the climate crisis, of the political corruption, of the wars, of the violation of women, of the refugees, all of these things, were created by the current mind that we have. Even Einstein said you can't solve the problem by the same thing that created the problem in the first place, right? That's sensible. You can't. And so what the elders say, okay, it means going to your heart. But this way is, it's movement that is absolutely necessary, because the mind, we think that that the intelligence is centered in the mind, but the intelligence, according to indigenous people, is your entire body and every God-given gift that you have. That is more than just physical, and we have forgotten that. We're just focused on the mind, and so we use that to create things. But even like when the US decided to go to hybrid fuels, that's supposedly a good idea, right? Well, what happens to the what happens when hybrid fuels were declared a priority? The US declared a priority. The farmers around the world, many of them, went from food crops to fuel crops. And it increased starvation around the world and increased the cost of living, the cost for food. And this is just one example of the state-of-the-art thinking that is not anything but the old. And we can go on, pick anything, and we can find where the old is. And so if we want to free ourselves of that, we've got to free ourselves of the things that are in our minds. Because when you go to your heart never guides you wrong. It always is right for you. And it contains love. It doesn't fear. It doesn't have a sense of time. We created time. We humans created time when we slipped out of the heart, and we immediately went to guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, all these things from the past, or fear, which is projection to the future of something that hasn't happened yet, every place except the proverbial now. And it's only, I think it was Deepak Chopra that said, the point of power is in the present moment. And that God can only be found in the silence between one's thoughts. And we've been praying for end of war for thousands of years, but we still have wars. Why is that? And we have more environmental organizations in existence today than there were 30 years ago, all over the world. But yet, life support systems for humans is coming to the edge. Why is that? And no one is asking the big why. And what the elders say is, okay, good people of good heart are focusing their energies on stopping something. They are reacting and trying to stop something. And that when you do that, you're pouring all your mental, physical, and spiritual energies into stopping something, when we need to focus on what the world is that we dream of. And the stopping, because we're energy beings, mental, physical, and spiritual, and we pour it into stopping something, it goes into the very thing we're trying to stop and makes it bigger. And this is something that is very difficult for most people to understand, but it is so true. And that if we realize what we are doing, we can then change direction and do the thing that the elders are saying we should do. But in the meantime, they said, yeah, there's some things that happen that you want to stop. Go ahead and stop it. But don't pour your mental, physical, and spiritual energies into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming close to the end of our time, and I would love to have you, if you can remember this, tell us the story about, remember the time with the masks when you were feeling like your people might lose their masks? And the reason I wanted you to tell that story is that I really want to give people a sense of how powerful it is and how much the womb of creation, the great intelligence, the ancient intelligence, has everything we need. And so when we are, instead of stopping something, when we're wanting to bring forth something, where we go. And I feel like this story helps illustrate that in a really beautiful way.
You had asked me that before and I didn't answer, so forgive me. Yeah, I was 16 years old at the time, and I was lamenting about the fact that our people no longer know how to make these incredible ceremonial masks. And they're in museums now. We don't make them, and I don't do anything. You know, I draw stick people. That's the most I can do. And so I decided to take this lament to the oldest person in the village at the time. His name was Aggie. He was 88 years old when I met him, when I saw him, for this reason. And because his father was the last shaman in the village, or his grandfather was the last shaman in the village. So I told him my lament, and he said in Unang and Tunu, which is the by Western terms, Aleut language. He said, no, it's never been lost. You want to find it again? I want you to do this. You go out to the edge of the island. You find a stick and a rock, and you listen, and you hear the rhythm of the birds singing, of the sea doing its thing, of the wind that is blowing against the grass. You listen to them very carefully, and then slowly beat your stick and rock together until you feel like you've got it. And then you must drop out of your head and go to your heart. Set your intention and wait. And that sounds simple, but really it's quite difficult. Drop out of your head. I knew how to do that since I was 6. So I did that. Go to your heart. I knew what that meant too. So I did that. Set your intention. How do you set your intention without thought? Mm-hmm. And what you do is do it at the cellular level of the body. Every cell of your body wants to know this. And wait means have the trust and the faith that the answer will come. And so I did that and waited for a couple of hours, and then pretty soon a black dot shows up in my mind's eye and got bigger and bigger, and out of it poured at least 100 different masks, Unangan Mass. And I thought, wow, what is this? Am I imagining it? Did I create this myself? And so I went back to the elder, and he said, "Echam Lakoch Lakaya, good boy. You touch the womb at the center of the universe. This is where we get all of our information about how to be and how to be with Mother Earth." And that was great knowledge and wisdom, that we have these original instructions that all nations have, that they say they have, and no one thinks about where it comes from. And they think that, some people think that it's because, well, our people went through this and went through that, and therefore they created this wisdom. But no, this has been given to us by the womb at the center of the universe. And this place is feminine. Now, I should say this, is that all the secret and sacred teachings that used to be secret, there was a great pendulum that was swinging back and forth since the beginning of time. And the elders are saying, we now have the opportunity to stop this pendulum from swinging from masculine imbalance to feminine imbalance, to dead center. And we can do this during this lifetime. And that the secret teachings were made secret during the last pendulum swing, which was masculine imbalance 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, and we're still in it today. And that what they decided to do was to hide the secret teachings, because they knew it was going to be abused and violated in horrible ways because of the masculine imbalance. And these teachings are feminine. They come from the womb at the center of the universe. And that the only time, they debated through the internet, not the internet, the internet. They talked around the world about what do we do with these sacred teachings, and they decided that the best way to hide it would be for each part of the world to forget one part of the teachings, but no other part would forget the same thing. And so the spiritual leaders didn't practice or talk about or anything for 2 generations, until that information was lost amongst that people for that particular time. Knowing, the elders knew that the only time people would deserve to bring back this great information, this great hoop of truth, would be when people opened up their hearts to share what they know with others. And so elders, as you know, have been going around the world for the last 30 years, sharing what they know in prayer, that the hoop of this sacred teachings will be made whole again. And so that's one thing that the elders are doing and still doing.
Well, thank you so much for that. I know, would you mention to the people specifically wisdom weavers and how they might connect up? Because it's a part of that, it's us joining together with those elders who are weaving that web back together, right?
Yep, that's right. I mean, the wisdom weavers see their work as helping to hook up every organization and person of like-minded heart, not like mind and heart, like-minded heart, together, so that we can expand this ability to share. And we're sharing not only by words, but by ceremony. and is very, very powerful, that if we get together this way and people around the world start doing this, that hoop of sacred teachings will be made whole again. And so I would offer people to get membership in the Wisdom Weavers. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can join and see everything that we're doing, including on our website, which is www.wisdomweavers.world. Yeah, and so I would invite your people who are watching this to explore that anyway.
Well, Ilarion, this has been most wonderful. And as always, I always think of beginning in gratefulness and ending in gratefulness. Really appreciative of what you're doing and what all the elders are doing. And I want to say thank you so very much for being with us today. This has been really helpful to us, and we need all the help we can get right now. So thank you very, very, very much.
Well, thank you for inviting me and having this opportunity, and much love to you and to all of your listeners and watchers.
All right, you be very well.
By the way, we must become love, not think love, not act love, become love. Okay.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Much love to you and everyone.
Okay, we'll see you.